right. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for being a part of week 4 of our Love Handle series. And we're still getting set up here. And we got something fun we're doing today. We're doing a panel. And we're going to just hear from some couples in our church as we talk about relationships and we try to get a grip on relationships in our lives. And so I'm excited about this and thankful that we all have the opportunity to be part of this today. And I want to just invite our panel up to join me on stage this morning. Would you give it up for these couples? And we'll introduce them in just a moment. But as they come, they're going to join me and we're going to take some seats here. And Jamie's going to join me as well. Don't forget your microphones. Todd, thank you. So awesome. Everyone panicked in that moment. They were like, hey, let's go. And so, hey, thank you guys for joining us. And I want to start with you guys. Would you just take a minute right now and introduce yourselves and set it up this morning, who you guys are?
Yes, we're Todd and Stephanie Watkins, but before we do, we wanted to take this opportunity to tell you all thank you. This is Pastor Appreciation Month, and the church did not want to miss out on an opportunity to tell you guys how thankful, truly thankful that we are for you as our pastors, how much we appreciate you guys. And so the church together, we just want to say thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your obedience. Thank you for passionately loving Jesus. Thank you for passionately loving this church. Thank you for your purity at heart. And we're truly honored and appreciative and blessed to call you guys our pastors.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And we have Corey's too, but he's not.
Yeah, so Pastor Corey, our youth pastor, is not here today, but we'll be sure to raid his gift and take all the good stuff so he doesn't get any of it. God bless you guys. Thank you. You guys hijacking service like this and just love you guys. Thank you so much. And I'll just say, hey, church, we love this. It's an honor to lead Highmark Church, and it's an honor to see what God is doing. And so you guys are a blessing to our lives, and our team is grateful of the opportunity to do what we do. And I will just say that Highmark Church, we have the best staff that we could have. Like, we have an amazing team. And Pastor JD, Pastor Corey, our team just is phenomenal that just do like ministry so well and just do it to the glory of God. And so would you just give it up for our team because they are amazing. And just thank you so much. Jamie and I love you all. And I don't handle moments like this very well because it's an honor to serve. And everything I do, it's like, let's just do it unto the Lord. Let's do it for his glory and for what he is doing in our lives. But it's a privilege and an honor. So thank you. And thank you for taking the time to honor our team and our staff. And so now we'll get going with this panel. And so Todd and Steph, would you just take a minute, introduce yourselves a little more right there and tell us about yourselves and how long you've been married and things.
Yeah, so I'm Todd, this is my wife Stephanie, and we've been married going on 34 years.
Awesome.
Nice.
A piece. But we have 3 kids, and 4 with Bethany, but Ashley's our oldest daughter. She's 33, and 35, I'm sorry.
Yeah. This is why marriage is important.
Nathan is our middle. He's on the praise team here, and then Travis is our youngest. And then Bethany is married to our son, Nathan, and we have 2 grandchildren, Lincoln and Charlie.
Awesome.
So we've been coming to Highmark now 2 years.
Love it.
That's a story in itself on how we found you guys, but we moved down here to Indy going on 4 years ago.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I remember the Sunday you showed up, we were still in the school, and I was like, hey, let's get to know these guys. And you weathered us out through the school time and setting up church, and so grateful you're a part of our church. And Todd, Todd helps with our ushers on just leading that crew and making sure our team there is like helping on Sundays and making sure we got enough seats and everything's flowing good in the auditorium. And then Steph is just she's like the Swiss Army knife of church. She's just like, you might see her some weeks in the kids area. You might see her at a First Saturday Prayer leading that. You might see her at Sisterhood this Friday night, speaking to all of our ladies. That's a little plug to be there, ladies, this Friday night. And so thank you guys for being a part of this panel. I'm excited to hear from you. 34 years. It's amazing. Praise God. All right. And then these guys back here, let's give it up for them. Come on. Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so I'm JD. This is my wife, Bella. We've been married just over 4 years. But we actually moved to Indianapolis in 2018 with the Champions to help launch Highmark Church. We got married in July and then we moved in August. So a crazy, crazy season. But I lead worship here, amongst other things. Bella's worn several hats right now. She's working with early childhood. We're passionate about the local church. We're passionate about seeing ministry grow and seeing healthy, life-giving churches in every community. And so when the Champions asked us to come and be a part of the vision that they had for this house, we said, yes, we're all in. And we moved to Indianapolis, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. And I'll tell you guys, like, these guys are gold. Like, we laugh now that, like, they moved here like 30 days after being married and just started a life, like left both of their families and just followed God. And let me tell you, it's been an awesome ride, and they're such a blessing and just have such great hearts. And so, they do it all as well. And so I think like we gave them the seats in the back because they've only been married 4 years. And so you have to earn your way onto the couch, or you have to earn your way onto the padded seats, okay? I thought it would be fun, guys, if you can help me. We're going to have a little fun and warm up and let everyone kind of get to know you a little bit this morning. But this is just a little game we're going to call like him or her. And I want you to use your best pointing finger to point who in the relationship is that person, okay? So at times you might point to yourself, you might point to the other person, okay? But I think it's gonna just help us all get to know one another a little bit better. It's gonna help us all, have probably a few laughs here along the way. And maybe if we have a couple stories that come from this, we'll need to dig into those.
I was going to say, since Don is reading the questions, I'm going to be pointing, and he probably won't point since he's reading the questions. So you guys I'm just right. So that's just how it's going to go for us this morning.
Okay, yeah. I think that's pretty much, actually the panel's over. That's the best marriage advice you can get right there. Let's pray and just end this right now, because guys, that's what you need right there. So I'm right and you're wrong. Okay, so no, I will try to answer some of them, especially when they benefit me. So, okay, ready? You got your fingers ready? Who is the better driver out of the two of you? Yes. Okay, wait, we have a discrepancy. Wait, are you guys both pointing to each other or yourselves?
We're the only ones that agree.
We're the only ones that agree that I am the better driver. Yeah. But everyone else, is there any, why? Is there a reason behind this?
Because when I drive, she says I drive like an old man now, and I have to be weaving in and out. But I'm the more, that's my point. I'm the better driver because you want me weaving in and out.
You're a much safer driver. You're not getting us there at the speed we would like to get there, though. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I don't do this with the gas.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired. Okay. So the marriage panel might yield some marriage counseling afterwards, so that's okay. But okay, next, when you're watching TV, who picks the Netflix show? I don't know who this is. I would say Jamie. Okay, wait. What do we got here? Okay, Steph, you're picking, and you guys agree. Okay, everyone agrees. Okay, cool. Okay, now this one, it starts to get a little touchy. Who is the spender in your marriage? Oh, okay. So Steph's the spender. She's controlling the budget. Okay, what's going on?
Probably me.
I feel like, okay, well, let's start with you guys. You disagree here, and I think when there's a disagreement, let's put that out in front of all the people.
Do we include work expenses like instruments and?
Or clothes or shoes.
Rude.
I think for us, it's like Jamie will. It depends where she's going. It's like Hobby Lobby, then she's the spender, you know, like or. But maybe it's me on big purchases. Yeah, more expensive
That's
things.
accurate.
So accurate. Okay. All right. Who talks the most? Okay. Wow, Todd, you're the talker? Use the microphone. Use the microphone.
I need a microphone for this one. He gets 10,000 words in before I have opened my eyes in the morning. And then those 10,000 words progress and progress and progress. And by midnight,
So you have like some boundaries in the morning, like, hey, let's
The
hold off.
boundaries are this. I got her a T-shirt that says, "I don't like mornings or people."
I feel that. Steph, every morning, just about every morning, Don is like, "Are you all right? Like, are you going to be okay?" I'm like, "Why? I'm fine." He just looks at me like I'm just grumpy or something. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm grumpy, but
It's just like,
so I
hey,
feel
let's
that.
get some coffee in you
Yeah.
as quick as we can so we can enjoy today, okay? So, okay, well, yeah, 4 p.m. is when talking starts. Okay. All right, so this one is good. Who is most likely to get lost when you're driving?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Okay. All right, well, it's unanimous all across. Like the guys should be navigating and be the ones at least putting the address in
I
there.
have a story on that real quick. So
Yeah.
Steph was driving home one time, and she was, next thing you know, when we lived up north, she goes, "I just passed where it said, 'Welcome to Michigan.'"
Oh no.
That's definitely the wrong direction then.
Bella's great at navigating if you want to get to Target. But other places, you might end up at Target still.
Yeah. Anywhere but Target, it's like you're lost, but like you could probably drive to Target eyes closed, right? You know, okay, not recommended, but you probably could do it. Okay, last one, let's have fun with this one. Who is the better dancer? Okay. Oh, JD and Bella are in this, they each are
I
proclaiming.
think that calls for a dance off. That's
Yeah,
the only way to.
yeah.
That's the only way to
Yeah,
solve
yeah.
that.
Yeah, we'll do that in the lobby after church. How about that? Okay, guys? So, all right. Well, thank you guys. It helps to get to know your relationship a little bit. And let's talk. We're going to talk about a few things this morning. I want to talk through the foundation of marriage that God has designed, because God's designed that relationship. I want to talk about how we love one another through that relationship. And I want to talk then about parenting as well, because that's another challenge as part of that relationship. And no matter where you're at in your journey, and no matter where you're at in your relationship status, there's things and principles that you can glean this morning and you can apply to your relationship or your future relationship. And so every person I want you to know we're speaking to everyone in the room. So if you're single, if you're, still seeking out that spouse or perfect somebody, there are things that you can glean in searching for that person and looking for that person and understanding kind of the principles behind marriage. So God is actually the designer of marriage. He's the one that created it. He's the one that said it's not good for man to be alone in the book of Genesis. And Jesus actually in Matthew 19, he actually quotes back in Genesis chapter 2 where God is saying and kind of laying out the purpose and the place for marriage and the power of that relationship. And so in Matthew chapter 19, verse 4-6, it says, "Having you read the scriptures," Jesus replied, "and they record that from the beginning, God made them male and female." And he said, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. And since they are no longer two, but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. Now, that is a proclamation. And what Jesus is quoting here is God's desire for marriage. Like it's the union of two people. So I really kind of like see this as a different picture, and marriage a topic that we need to talk about, because divorce is actually a rampant thing in our society. It's actually, when Jamie and I started responding to God's call to plant Highmark Church and just kind of getting to know where he was calling us, we realized that even the state of Indiana has one of the highest divorce rates in all of the country. That at the time, it was 6th in the country in terms of the number of divorces and marriages that fail. But here God is saying, listen, they're joined together. They become one, and let no man split apart. So I want to kind of ask you guys, and feel free to jump in here and share any insight or stories you have. But what is different about God's picture of marriage than what you often see presented in our culture today? What are the differences you've seen and you've kind of come to understand and grow in? And just feel free to jump in here.
Well, we talked about earlier this morning, it's 50% of marriages end up in divorce, whether it's a Christian marriage or not. And, when you go through life, when you look at divorce or you're not, it's not an option. And I had a scripture that I actually did, if you don't mind, but Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working with the Lord, not for the human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from Lord as reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving, meaning that it's not an option. Everything you do with all your heart, which includes marriage.
Yeah.
So that's something as far as a foundation that you try to live through.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, I would say that I think in culture, it's so often portrayed as like divorce is an option if like your marriage isn't working for you anymore. Now, I'm not speaking to divorces that are for other reasons, just like if you're just not feeling it, or maybe you've fallen out of love. You hear that a lot in People magazine, Giselle and Tom, anyone? We've just fallen out of love. It's not for us anymore. And it's like, that's really not what God is asking of us. He's asking us to make a commitment to serve one another, to serve the Lord faithfully together. And so when you make that work at it with all your heart, commitment, that's what you have to do. It's a commitment. It's not just for your convenience.
It's really good. Love that.
I'll add this. When Tom and I first got married, probably for our first 7 years, we did not do marriage well. The good news is we couldn't even do divorce well. We had so many strikes going against us, and we tried for 7 years to get divorced. He would try, but then I wouldn't sign the papers. I would try, he wouldn't sign the papers. But then we had some pastors that would literally fought the gates of hell for us. And the thing that changed for us was we took the word divorce out of the equation. We no longer said divorce is an option. We're going to fight, and we're going to fight for the marriage, and we're going to fight through these things. We're not going to keep trying to quit. We're not going to keep trying to walk away. And when we changed that mindset, so there's no longer we're going to get divorced or we're going to try and get divorced, then our marriage began to change.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I think like we had that conversation even early on in our relationship or engagement before we got married. Is like, yeah, we just don't want that to be part of the equation. And you have to have two people that are on that same page of like, we're going to fight for this. We're going to make this a priority. And if you do, it's unstoppable. Like God is going to help you and give you the grace to walk through any trial, anything. And you kind of develop a new mentality of like, I think sometimes a lot of times people are like, what can I get out of this relationship instead of just what can I put into it? And I think when you shift that, it really strengthens your relationship. And so, divorce is part of our culture, is part of our world. And you might have walked through divorce, and sometimes that is outside of our control or desire. And you've had a desire one way or the other, but like, as you go into a new relationship or God's redeeming a relationship, it's like you can set a new course, and like having two people that kind of are on the same page of understanding that is really, really powerful. So were you going to add something, Bella? Okay. So I just didn't want to stop. What would you guys say? Is there anything else you kind of gleaned from your years in marriage that, you, I guess, actually, let me go this direction. Like, JD and Bella, I know you guys have only been married a few years, but I think when we read this scripture in Matthew, we see that there has to become a priority in your relationship. And you each, probably just in the past several years, have made a new priority. You've built a new family. Tell us what that looks like and what it means to make a new priority in your life.
Yeah, I think it's a process, right? Like you're leaving your family of origin, whatever that looks like, and you're establishing something brand new, which is beautiful and messy. And so I think you've got to be willing to embrace the fact that it's not going to necessarily be this super sweet process. It's not going to be easy or simple, but that it's something worth fighting for. So you and your spouse have to sit down and say, hey, like, this is where we want to be. Let's set the groundwork for our family, and let's figure out how to make that happen. And sometimes it's uncomfortable conversations with family of origin or difficult process where there's miscommunication or frustrations, but I think it's making sure that at the end of the day, you and your spouse are on the same page in terms of where you're going. That's what's most important, because if you guys aren't on the same page, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you can walk in unity and you can be together, you can move like lightning. So just making sure that you and your spouse are on the same page as you move through those processes can also kind of grease the rails too in the face of difficult situations. You know, maybe you struggle with a family member or something along those lines. When you guys are on the same page, you're able to support each other through that adversity.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Good.
It's really good. Todd and Steph, tell me, like, you guys 34 years, tell me about, like, you probably have felt seasons and situations or times when kids or career, like, it feels like it's pressing out even your relationship. How have you, like, kept a priority to your relationship over the years?
Well, for our relationship, what we did was we learned a long time ago from our old pastor was whatever you love, you spend your time with. We spell love T-I-M-E. And when our kids were growing up, like in Rochester and stuff, it's Friday night, the big thing to do was to go to the moves, right? But we decided that we weren't going to do that. But a lot of the people that went to the moves, we would have their kids over to our house, and we invested in our kids and we invested in our family to where when that was going on, we were lucky that the kids wanted to hang out at our house. And because of that, it wasn't necessarily that we're always preaching at our kids or anything else. It was we were spending time with them, investing in them where they wanted to hang out with us. And we believe that the seed we planted then are the reasons why they want to hang out with us, well, hopefully today.
Yeah.
Being able to do that, just spending your time no matter what you do, that's how the kids knew. We invested in our kids on spring break trips. You know, we decided at the time, a tax refund and all that stuff, we were going to invest in our kids during spring break, and that's what they wanted to do. But that was the time that we spent with them, and we allowed them to make, I mean, obviously they made errors and all that stuff, but we felt like our living testimony, how we lived our lives, was going to be a seed planted to where it was going to harvest them growing up.
That's really good. That's really good.
I would add that we prioritized our marriage while prioritizing our family. So we had a different approach. We didn't do a lot of date nights. One reason we couldn't afford it when our kids were little. Our date nights consisted of playing Mario Kart after the kids went to bed. But everything that we strive to do, we tried to make our family a priority so that our children could see the importance of family and through the importance of marriage. Family dinner around our dinner table at our house was a non-negotiable. We ate dinner around the table, conversation. Church on Sunday mornings was non-negotiable for our children growing up. They weren't allowed to spend the night on Saturday nights at a friend's house, and if they did, they knew that they had to be at church. So we just wanted the priority of marriage to be seen through the priority of family, and that was the approach that we took.
That's so good.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
good. Any other ways, Grangers, you would add, or Jamie, do you have anything to add there? No. Okay, good. So what advice would you give to someone looking for a spouse, still like, you know, they're looking for that next step, that relationship? What do you have that you would kind of give advice to them?
Can I share a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was just thinking about that. I was thinking if I was sitting down with someone to coffee and they asked me that question, like, what advice do you have for me in this season? A few things came to mind. One of them is don't wish away this time in your life. Like it's normal. It's, you know, you're gonna be hoping for that relationship like that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally normal. And pray for that, you know, pray for God's best, pray for, you know, the person that God's going to bring into your life, but also don't wish away where you're at right now. And I think that can go to any of us in any season of our life, like wherever you're at right now, that's where God has you. And so if you're not married right now, like that's not what God has for you right now in this season. So, there's kind of this like balance of trusting God and like having this hope and excitement for the future, but also like, Lord, I don't want to miss what you have for me right now. And as a single person, what are the things that are unique to that season of life? You know, you have more freedom. You're like responsible to yourself. You're not responsible for a spouse and things like that. And so what are the kind of the things that you can do, and even in your purpose in the church and serving the Lord and things like that. Just, don't miss that. Like, don't wish that away, and ask God, what do you have for me in this season while you're trusting him and believing him for the future.
It's really good. It's really good. Let's talk about loving one another, okay? So the Apostle Paul talks about in Ephesians, and I'm not going to read the whole scripture, but in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22 through 33, he talks about husbands, love your wives, and then wives, respect your husbands. And so he presents this picture of a marriage kind of being this two-way street. And he actually presents it based on love needs. And he talks about the man's need to be respected and the wife's need to be loved. And I think like when we kind of start to look at relationships through that lens and we look at the different love needs, it helps us realize that, we need different things. We have different love needs in our life. And so part of, I think sometimes our culture is like, well, I'm just trying, like, we use the phrase like, I fell in love with this person. And when you use that kind of terminology, you end up just being okay saying at some point, well, I fell out of love, or we fell out of love. And love actually is not just a feeling, it's like a commitment. And so it needs to be stewarded, it needs to be cultivated. So I want to just ask the husbands, like, what does it mean to you to love your wife? So do you have things you've learned in your long season or short season together that like, hey, this is how I need to love her?
Well, not talk to her till 4 p.m. But, growing up, and we read a book years ago by Gary Smalley called The 5 Love Languages. And
Yep.
what Steph needs obviously is different than what I need. But what I've learned over the years is from her, she doesn't need expensive gifts. She doesn't need expensive jewelry. At the time we couldn't afford it and all that anyway, but it's just the small stuff each day. It's the Diet Mountain Dew, Fountain Diet Mountain Dew. Bring something home, something small like that. Maybe a text every once in a while, a message or something, just so they know that they actually love. That's what her love language is. But what I can preference is this, and the other thing is this. Guys, we don't always have to be right. There's so many times where you try to prove that you have to be right, even though we probably are, but sometimes you win. Sometimes you feel like
Or we're just stubborn. Yeah.
Sometimes you win the war, but you don't win the battle. But it's just being there, knowing that they have to be there. And I got one more thing that I'll share on that, and it was a few years ago. We went to a men's conference, and I've been to men's conferences years, and you don't pick up, if you pick up 10% and do it, not. But it was called Act Like Men. And the whole foundational verse was 1 Corinthians 16:13. There's 4 things. It says, be on guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love. And if you can take those 4 pillars and try to practice those in your marriage, I think that you'll be successful with them. But that's what I try and do to be able to go her needs. We've had ups and downs when it comes to faith, Steph went through a medical situation a few years ago, and her faith was down a little bit, and you have to be able to bolster them up. We're going through kind of a career change right now, and my faith's been down a little bit, so she's been able to lift me up there. But you got to be able to be a partnership and to know through each other that you're fighting for the good.
That's so good.
That's good.
I think like one of the things we had to learn early was like, don't love each other the way that we're looking for love. And that book, 5 Love Languages, was so helpful to us to be like, oh, I know that Jamie's love language is like quality time and mine's acts of service. So like, it's not fair for me to just like love her the way that I like love or looking for love or like see love. It's like, I need to love her the way. So, hanging out and spending time. And so even yesterday, we had Jamie's best fall life. She just put on a flannel on Saturday and got a pumpkin spice latte and, you know, took some photos out at the apple orchard or at the orchard or farm. And like, you know, she just lived her best life yesterday. And I loved it. She loved it. And, you know, it was quality time. So
I think along with that too is like, yes, we both work on trying to show love, like the way the other person receives love, but also like noticing, like I really try to notice when Don is doing something for me. Like if I even mention my car's almost out of gas, or like he sees my car is dirty, he's taking it to get gas, he's like washing it. And I hate to admit that there's times that I like probably haven't noticed. How terrible is that? But like it's intentionally trying to notice when the other person.
I'll remind you.
When the other person is loving you, when the other he does remind me sometimes. When the other person is loving you with their love language, and like accepting that too. So it's not just like, no, just love me the way that it's like noticing that, and like, I know you're doing this because you love me. Like this is you showing me that you love me. So I think that's important too.
That's good. Let's talk. Wives, tell us about what does it mean to respect your husband? They don't have anything to say suddenly. They're like, we're all about the love, not a lot of respect here. So
No, I think something that I've had to learn is he's the leader of our home, and I am a highly passionate person. If you spend 5 minutes with me, you'll learn that. And sometimes I get really passionate about things, and JD's like, we don't need to like worry about that now, or whatever it is. And just allowing him to be the leader of our home, respecting him in that way, because he is the leader and I'm called to submit to his leadership. And so just respecting him that way, and also just not like beating down on him. Like I think as a woman, I can be highly emotional, and so I can say things that are not respectful. And so just being cautious of my words and speaking truth of who God has created him to be is how I can be most respectful.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So good. Did you want to add stuff?
Yeah, I'll share a couple. I think one is, like he said, we're coming off one of the hardest seasons that we've had in a long time. And I think respect from my end to him is sometimes just sitting back and trusting him to make the right decisions for our home, to lead us the way that he thinks we should be led. So sometimes the respect comes in just sitting back and letting him take that lead and trusting him to do what he knows is best for us. And I think a second one for me is when our kids were growing up, we were a united front as parents.
That's so good.
We were a united front. And I'm pretty sure our kids would attest to this too. I always respected him during the times of discipline. I may not have agreed with his choice at the time, but I waited until we were alone so that we could talk about it. But we respected each other enough while disciplining and raising our kids to be united in front of the kids, and then deal with maybe what we didn't agree with privately.
Afterwards. Yeah, that's really good. That is really good. Well, I think that's a good segue to talk about parenting. And we'll kind of land the plane here with talking about being a parent, because it's one of the greatest joys, but also one of the like toughest jobs you'll ever have as a parent. And so Jamie and I have been married 21 years. We have 2 great kids. And we're in the season of like launching them out from teenagers into into their adulthood, and the Grangers, you have 2 little kids. And so, the greatest blessing you get is sleep right now. And then, Todd and Steph, you're living in the glory land of grandkids. Like, you can have the best and send them home with the rest, And so let's talk about raising kids, because God has such a special role for us to play as parents in training up our kids. Proverbs 22:6 says, direct your children onto the right path, and when they're older, they will not leave it. Such a great practical word for us. And so tell us what you've learned. Do you have any good, actually, let's start with like parenting fail stories, because I think like it helps for everyone just to know like, yeah, we dropped the ball along the way, but do you guys have any parent fail stories?
Sage was like maybe 9 months old, and JD and I on a Saturday morning were like, oh, we're gonna go get breakfast. It's gonna be this cute family morning. and we didn't give Sage food before we left. And we ate about 10 a.m. And so like our 9-month-old hadn't eaten all morning. And so we got to the restaurant and Sage lost her mind. She was screaming bloody murder. Like literally the whole restaurant was looking at us. A family actually gave us their fruit cup. They were like, "Do you want this for your kid?" So yeah, we failed. We didn't feed our child before we went to breakfast.
It's like they don't know how to hang on. We're
Yeah,
eating
they
later.
can't, chill.
That's awesome. All right, any other parenting fails?
So we were privy to this question, and so I thought, I'm going to send my kids a text and say, hey, what was my fail as a mother?
That's a mistake right there. I'm just gonna say, like, you don't open up that can right there.
I took my finger off my phone rang, and it was my youngest informing me of what my fail was. And he had said, keep in mind, all three of my children did tell me what my fails were as well. But my youngest said, Mom, I was a senior in high school, and you had made plans, which I did, to take Nathan to hear Straight No Chaser. It was his favorite group. We were going to go out to dinner and have a fun little mom-son night. Well, what I didn't realize is the day I booked the ticket was also Travis's first and last night of his senior football sectional game. And so I stuck with my plans and went to Straight No Chaser, and Todd went with Travis, into which they lost the senior game. So that was my fail. I chose Nathan, I guess, over Travis,
Oh,
and
no.
I missed the football game. So he couldn't wait to call me with that one. And then my other son, he let me know my fail was when he was in college playing baseball. If Todd would miss the game, he would call me and say, how did Nate do? And I'd say, oh, he had 4 hits. So then Todd would get a hold of Nathan later and it's like, hey, you went 4 for 4, that's great. And Nate would be like, no, I went 1 for 4. And then he was like, you said Nate went 4 for 4. And I said, he did, he had 4 hits. He got out 3 times, but he got 4 hits. So clearly my fail is not knowing baseball.
That's awesome. That's
My
awesome.
daughter told me my fail was she was dating a guy in college that we just did not like. And she called me to talk to me about him one day, and I said, you know what, I can't even hear his name in a conversation. And I wouldn't listen to the phone call conversation. So those are my fails.
That's good. Thanks for your transparency.
Okay, I have a little one. This is a little embarrassing to admit. So our kids were little. We lived in Michigan at the time. We were serving as youth pastors at a church there. So it was like a 5-hour drive to come here and visit my family. And so I think Lexi was probably 1 or 2. Andrew was 5 or 6, and I'm driving with the kids by myself because we were going to stay the whole weekend. Don, as a pastor, wasn't able to miss that Sunday. So we're driving, with little kids. Like, we had already stopped like 3 times. I'm like, this 5-hour trip is turning into going to be like a 7-hour trip. So, and of course, Andrew's like, Mommy, I got to go pee. I got to go pee. And I was just like, we are not stopping. We're not stopping. And I noticed this empty cup from a previous
And the
stop.
rest is history.
And I hand it back, and I'm driving. I don't pull over. I'm driving down the highway and hand it to my 5 or 6-year-old son. And I'm like, just stand up and go in this cup. So embarrassing that I did that.
And probably embarrassing for
Yeah,
him.
and I don't really
So,
remember the rest. Like, I
He's
just
20 now.
It was
everybody.
messy. I'll just say that, but I think I just blocked it out. I don't really remember, but
All right. Sometimes we don't
yeah.
make the best choices.
It's not good judgment.
I was one time with watching Andrew, and we were outside, and he was playing on the swing set, and I was in the garage working on something and like using a saw and just making a lot of noise. And my neighbor comes over, and he's like, "Hey, Andrew's like hung up on the swing set in the back." Like, and I was like so busy doing what I was doing that he had like got his leg caught and was like hanging on the swing set. And my neighbor's like, "Hey, he's like, you need to help him." Yeah, he's yelling for you. And I just was like missing it. And so thank you for the grace of God that like he helps us along the way. But let's talk about this, like directing the path of your children. And I know we'll wrap up with this today, is like, what are some of the things that you've done along the way to just help direct the path of your kids in following the ways of the Lord and their faith?
I know we're like very young parents, so I don't at all want to be like, we have it all together, we're doing everything right. But something that's worked really well in our family, specifically with our daughter, she's 2.5. We do 1 Bible verse a month. We repeat it every night before bed. We sometimes say it in the morning on the way to daycare, or at lunch or just whenever we're chatting, it's like whenever it comes up, we'll just repeat the verse. And our daughter has 10 Bible verses memorized. She's done them through the year and she's actually retaining them. And it's incredible because I was like, how is this possible? But I just think it's like such a simple thing. And it's been really fruitful in our lives too, because we're memorizing the verses. We may already know some of them, but just to do that as a family, and we do them with Ford too. He can't say them back yet, but it's just been really cool and fruitful for our family.
That's awesome.
that.
I love that. Simple, really simple. Steph, Todd, do you guys have anything to add?
One I've already said, parents, church should be non-negotiable. We had 3 kids playing 3 different sports, all 3 seasons. Travis played 2 baseball teams at one time. Nathan played on 2 baseball teams at one time, and Nathan played year-round baseball for 5 years. And church was non-negotiable. Our kids knew on Sunday morning they were going to be in church. And so I think that's the biggest one, is we've gotten very lackadaisy with Sunday mornings. And I'm not trying to sound all preachy, but it's just one thing that was so important for our family growing up, was just church was non-negotiable. And I think the second one that really worked for us was our kids knew that they could talk to us about anything. We had open conversation at our house. Nothing was taboo. Your kids are going someplace to find out their questions to the things that are going on. Let them feel comfortable coming to you. And I actually learned that lesson from our daughter. Our kids were not allowed to date until they got into high school. We did make an exception for Nathan in 8th grade because it was a family friend, but her first...
Oh, you liked that one.
Yeah, there was one. But Ashley's first boyfriend came when she was a freshman in high school, and she came home to tell me that they held hands. And the way I reacted, you would have thought she was telling me a lot more than that they just held hands. And she said to me, Mom, if you want me to tell you these things, you've really got to work on the way you're reacting to what I'm going to say. And it was my daughter that taught us that lesson, that your kids should be able to come to you for anything and everything. Nothing taboo. Keep the lines of communication open, and watch how you react when they have things to say, so that they'll keep coming back and wanting to come back and tell you more.
Yeah, I was going to go right down that line. It's being predictable, whether you're a leader, a parent, no matter what you are. If you're not predictable and they don't know how you're going to react in certain situations, they'll end up shutting you down. And, over the sports and all that stuff, sometimes we want to live our life through our kids. And I was a very hard coach on them. And if I look back as a failure, sometimes it was, if we lost a game, if I took it harder than what the kids did, I knew that it was bad. And that would happen. And that's an example of where you have to. But anyway, being predictable.
Being predictable.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's
I
good.
love that. And I think, there's so much truth to just like keeping the communication open as they're teenagers, and like being okay. They'll make some mistakes, but hey, let's get back to the path. And that scripture there is like just so true. Is like you're helping them make right decisions for their life, and they will learn that through your example and through the standards and priorities you make in your household. So I love that.